Hello and welcome to week 7 in Introduction to Sociology. And last week we were talking about race and ethnicity, and this week we're going to be talking about sex, gender, and sexuality, and really taking sort of the same approach in terms of understanding the inequality that results because of these aspects of our society. Now, in addition to that, I've also decided to move away from just simply going through the course book, which you can do all on your own, and actually creating a slideshow in order to help me lecture about this particular material. So we'll switch to that slideshow and hope you enjoy it. So here, Chapter 12, Gender, Sex, and Sexuality, and we're going to start off with some definitions. So first off, we'll put our terms up here. We have sex, gender, and sexuality. And we are going to take, for the moment, a very keen look at each one of these terms and what do they mean from a sociological perspective. These have many meanings. They have some vague meanings and they have some distinct meanings. Now, when we're talking about the application within a science like psychology, sociology, we want to define our terms so we all know that when we use certain terms, that's what we're talking about. And it also reflects the value systems and findings, the scientific findings of that particular discipline. So, sex is determined by biology. This is the genetic and or physiological aspects of a person. These are non-negotiable. You're born with them, and in a certain to a degree, we can we can have sexual reassignment surgery to change our anatomy, but we don't change our genetics. We are primarily a species of male, female, with a very, very small percentage of people who are genetically hermaphrodites, having characteristics of both, having physiological characteristics of both. So we see sex in the world of sociology being defined very clearly as the biological component of this. Now, gender is sociological and rests completely in sociology, because what gender is it's a category of terms that are used to describe the norms, values, and expectations within a group, within a society, pertaining to someone's sex. Now, we know, however, that to define that on a binary base is almost impossible. And what I'm going to use as an example for that, the way I want to kind of portray that is a society grappling with the notion of creating norms, values, and expectations based on sex will be bound by a binary system, primarily. What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? The problem with that, as I'm sure many of you can see, is that if we put a whole bunch of things that we consider male stuff into a blue box, and we put a whole bunch of things that we consider female things into the pink box, then, and they're mutually exclusive from each other, then it limits all of us. And it doesn't portray reality in the least. Individuals are born with a set of characteristics, likes, dislikes, propensities, sexuality, understandings of the world, perspectives of the world, emotional intelligence, and whatnot, that may pick from either one of those boxes. They may be leaning toward more of their characteristics around one, more in the other, but nonetheless, we are not born into the world with primarily blue components and with all blue components and all pink components. That's not the reality of human beings, and it never has been. Society has created that. It has created those labels of what they think behavior looks like. So we have sex determined genetically and biologically and largely through anatomy. And then we have gender determined as a set of terms that we use to describe individuals that take possession of characteristics from either one of these boxes. Many of these characteristics we probably need in a green box or something. There's characteristics that there's not a lot of gender discrepancy between them, but let's just understand that there's this characteristic that some things are considered, let's say, traditionally male, traditional female, just for the sake of conversation. Now, individuals born in the world have to negotiate within their group, their society, their culture as to what to call themselves. And there are individuals that have been increasingly unable to do that through the traditional use of the blue and pink categories, man and woman, and have had to find other ways and other terms, and society has responded by creating other words to describe individuals that have a different selection from those boxes. People that kind of don't even want to even validate that there are boxes. Probably a very good progression of ideas. Keep in mind that the containment in there is somewhat arbitrary. Now, it probably comes from history of males having a propensity to those things in the blue box, and women having a propensity to those things that are in the pink box, that sort of created this over the history of those concepts. But at no time is there any sort of genetic marker that says if you have XY chromosome, this is how you're going to act. That has never been there. So now we have new terms, and for some people, this is a challenge to their worldview. And so it is created for those individuals that strive to define themselves more accurately than the terms male and female actually do, or men and women do in terms of gender. Male and female is probably a better words for sex, and woman and man for gender. But they don't fit into those categories, can sometimes be subject to ridicule, trying to change the system. You're not fitting in, those kinds of things. And the lived experience of those individuals can be very much along those lines. They don't quite fit in. And so where do I fit in? I have to define my own category, and that's certainly challenging, particularly when there may be aspects of that society that are resisting that particular aspect of their identity creation. And so it's important to recognize the sociological nature of that. Now, so we have gender being sociological, defined primarily by culture, status, and role. Status of their gender, what name does it have, and then to what degree is that limited or expansive in terms of their role or their job description. And then finally we have sexuality, which is a combination of both. Now, one of the reasons why that we see these separated so much is that any combination of these can happen. We can have an individual who is genetically male, identifies as a woman, and is attracted to a woman partner for romance and sexuality. We can see any permutation of these, which kind of lend us to the idea that these work independently. Of course they're related to each other, they interact, but they're separate components. Sex, gender, and sexuality are separate components of our lives, and we negotiate within ourselves our place that we want to be with those. So here we have sex, gender, and sexuality from the perspective of sociology, and we ask ourselves, where are things unequal? Where is there injustice? Where is there inequality? Those kinds of things. We understand inequality, that there's ability that creates an inequality, and that's fine. And then there's luck, that creates an inequality. But do we have any systemic inequality where, regardless of what sex you are, regardless of what gender you identify with, and regardless of your sexuality, your ability to enact that role or that status within your world is not in any way affected by those things? Why do we still see trends of less women in politics? We see less women in math and engineering. We see less men in nursing, but we see more of them as doctors. We still, even 2021 here, we're still seeing these trends just alone in career. And so that systemicness of it, we understand that sex, gender, and sexuality don't affect how smart I am. So why does it seem to have some trends within other measures, other big numbers that we have? And sociology likes to explore those things to find out where that systemic inequality is arising from. Now, one of the places that we can turn to in order to get an understanding of that particular relationship is the media. I got this graphic here. We have this hands wrapped around all these sources of information that we get. What does the media say about sex, gender, and sexuality? Now, we know that media has a multiplicity of purposes. It's to sell products, that's for sure. It's to make money, but it sells more than products and it makes more than money. It creates images. It creates indelible images. It pairs products and images and ideas with individuals identified as male and female, individuals that are identified by their gender, and individuals that are identified by their sexuality. And it pairs images and ideas with those. And those can become embedded in there. They become a part of our construction of internalized schemas of those actual components of them. So you may have, let's say, a inner representation of a gay man, a person who's born a man, identifies as a man, but sexually likes sex with likes to have relationships and sexuality and approaches that part of their life with same-sex individuals. And you may have an inner representation of that, and that inner representation was built up through personal experience with individuals, maybe your own experiences, and the experiences portrayed on the media. And we ask ourselves, are the portrayal of gay men in the media, is it fair, is it representative, or is it a caricature of that then leads further to a internalization in many people that is off the mark? That's not what, most people are like. It's not that. And these are important things to consider in all of these areas. And certainly just looking at male-female differences, we often see them, not only are females subjugated basically in advertising, they're disembodied, only parts of their body, they're sort of dehumanized in a way for the selling of products. And we'll see a little bit of that happening when we look at at media itself. And so I kind of want to end it there. Let's take a look at the assessments for this week. We have a chapter 12 discussion. You can see my battery's almost dead. I gotta finish here pretty soon. Whoops. That wasn't meant to happen. Let's see what our assignments are this week. I'll get my slideshow back up and running. We have a discussion on gender and what we've learned about that. And we have a quiz on sex, gender, in the media. And I better get this slideshow done because my battery's going to go dead. So thank you for taking this journey with me. Please post any questions. Some rich discussion on this is always welcomed. And I will see you in the discussion boards. Take care.